Right now, Elon Musk hosts an event in Green Bay supporting Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate Brad Schimmel ahead of Tuesday's election. Also, Wisconsinites from across the aisle come together to try to find common ground on gun violence prevention. That's all coming up on News 3 Now at 10. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jalen Banks. The Wisconsin Supreme Court will not take up Attorney Josh Call's request for the block of Musk from gifting $100 million rewards. $1 million reward, This comes after a unanimous decision by the court, which did not offer a rationale for the ruling. It came just minutes before Musk took the stage in Green Bay to host a rally on the final weekend ahead of the spring campaign. That's where we find political reporter Will Keneally, who joins us now from Green Bay. Will, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Jalen, we're joining you from a windy Green Bay. Now, that weather did not deter about 2,000 people from showing up at this event held by Elon Musk at the Green Bay Convention Center downtown. Now, this election has gotten national attention, becoming the most expensive judicial race in American history. Now, as you mentioned earlier, Musk was able to hand out those $2 million checks. And to avoid essentially the appearance of paying people to vote for a certain candidate, he said anyone that wants to come to this, all they have to do is sign a petition to oppose activist judges. But once inside the event itself, there's a strong endorsement for the conservative in that race. Now, as Musk talked about concerns that the court's liberal majority right now on the state Supreme Court could redraw Wisconsin's congressional districts.
The House majority right now is razor thin. It's really just a few seats. And if the Supreme Court is able to redraw the districts, they will gerrymander the districts and deprive Wisconsin of 2 House seats on the Republican side.
Now, we've heard the liberal candidate in the race say that she will not promise any specific outcome like that. Now, again, this has become a nationally watched race, in part because this is one of the first times voters in anywhere in the country are going to the polls in Trump's second term here. So a lot to watch out for, again, as this is the most expensive judicial race in American history. Now, whoever wins, of course, on Tuesday will control the state Supreme Court, which sets a lot of significant policy in Wisconsin for at least the next year here. But for now, reporting in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Will Keneally, News 3 Now.
All right, sounds good, Will. Thank you. Let's head outside to the patio with a look at your first warn forecast with meteorologist Blaze Keller. Blaze, first off, how does it feel out there?
A little bit cooler than certainly how we started off this weekend. We've been dealing with a system and it's taken its time moving through. We did have some thunderstorms this morning across southeastern Wisconsin and across central Wisconsin. Now we're dealing with cooler temperatures and that snow and a rain snow mix. It's still 45 in Kenosha, 32 in Fond du Lac, 33 in Madison, 36 in Bosco. Well, we're all pretty much in those low to mid 30s. It's 34 in McFarland and 35 in Mount Horeb. Taking a look at radar 3000, we find snow mainly staying north of the Dells, marked by the blue there. Light to moderate snow activity stretching from essentially northern Wisconsin all the way back south and westward into northern parts of Iowa. And you can track out these showers all throughout the night and really at any time of the year by downloading our First Warn weather app. You can get down to the street level to see where these showers are, like in the Belleville area. It extends all the way back into Darlington as well. Now, as the kids are returning back to school from their spring break, we're going to be hanging out in those 20s underneath mostly cloudy conditions. But as the day goes on, we're going to see more sunshine. It's going to be windy. We're not going to really warm up past, I would say, the 40s. We are tracking 60s, though, but it comes with a chance for showers and possibly some severe weather on Wednesday. That's coming up in your full forecast.
All right, sounds good, Blaze. We'll see you in just a bit. To an update now from Saturday. 20 people living in 10 units of an apartment building in Beloit are now displaced following a fire. This happening on the city's west side near Harpers Prairie Park. The Beloit Fire Department reports that no injuries were reported. The cause and the total damage estimate is not available at this time. Federal funding cuts have thrown local food systems in Wisconsin into chaos. Earlier this month, the USDA announced it was terminating funding for 2 pandemic-era initiatives, which help supply fresh food to food banks and pantries. The USDA had previously signed a contract earlier this year to fund one of those programs in Wisconsin. As a result, The hundreds of participating farmers in the state had taken out loans and purchased equipment in preparation for the program's continuation. But now trade organizations are warning farmers could lose financial stability as they scramble to find new buyers, which is especially challenging in the spring. They are also warning that underserved communities could also struggle to access fresh food. Governor Tony Evers and Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin have both urged the Trump administration to restore the funding. Wisconsinites came together this afternoon for a first-of-its-kind event to find common ground on gun issues following the Abundant Life Christian School shooting. Hosted by builders, the event featured a film screening and panel discussion on balancing public safety and Second Amendment rights. Our Merrill Hubbard has more.
We often frame these conversations as draining and difficult.
Having conversations about gun issues can be tense, but this afternoon, those uncomfortable conversations were the focal point for a panel.
We have to be willing to be uncomfortable so that our children can live in a comfortable world.
5 panelists, 3 from Wisconsin and 2 from Tennessee, weighed in on gun safety and the Second Amendment. But before their discussion, they sat with more than 200 to watch the screening of the Tennessee 11, a documentary that followed a group of Tennesseans as they debated their beliefs around gun issues.
The civic experiment depicted in the documentary was filmed in 2023. Short time after the Covenant School shooting in Nashville.
Ashley Phillips is the head of programs with Builders, a nonpartisan nonprofit initiative aimed at defying the divide.
Solutions are possible, even to our toughest problems, and one way to get there is by collaborating across lines of difference.
The 2 panelists from Tennessee were featured in the documentary. Alyssa Pearman, a teacher from Jackson, who's lost multiple students to gun violence.
Closing caskets on kids is not easy.
And Adam Luke, a self-described educated redneck and Second Amendment supporter.
The divide isn't just widening, it's growing more teeth.
From Wisconsin, Charles Franklin, the director of the Marquette Law School poll, gave Wisconsin-specific stats.
Surrendering guns with a judge's order and universal background checks, there's actually not much of a partisan divide.
Stephen Olikara, a former U.S. Senate candidate in Wisconsin.
We have to combat the fear that's out there and combat that division by humanizing each other.
And Steve DeRazio, owner of Max Creeks Outdoors, a gun shop and range in Oregon.
It isn't so much the gun rights, it's who has them.
Everyone on the panel has a different approach to gun safety, yet they all agree that
We have to experience a little bit of discomfort if we truly want to grow as people.
Reporting in Madison, Merrill Hubbard, News 3 Now.
Merrill, thank you. Baseball season is upon us, and you don't need to go far to find your favorite team. This year, News 3 Now has partnered with the Milwaukee Brewers to bring you more than a dozen games right here on our airwaves, including tomorrow's home opener. But you don't need to wait for the 1:10 first pitch to get ready for the game. Our morning team will be live from American Family Field first thing tomorrow, and at noon, our Eric Franke, Zach Canley, and Andrew Banstra will host an hour-long special leading into the ballgame, bringing you all things Brew Crew. Coming up next on News 3 Now at 10, Blaze Keller returns with a complete look of your first one forecast. Plus, Californians are still recovering from the wildfires that ravaged the state earlier this year.
Iran rejects direct negotiations about the Islamic Republic's nuclear program. I'm Cristian Benavides with what new polling reveals about how Americans feel about President Trump's second term so far.
3 Now at 10.
Tonight, there's a push to speed up building efforts in California communities devastated by wildfires nearly 3 months ago. CBS's Andres Gutierrez is in Los Angeles with the latest.
I had over 40 trumpets. I managed to save 8 of them on the way out.
Renowned trumpeter Jens Lindemann walks through the ashes of his home, struggling to move forward.
All of us are crying out for help. We have to fight for what is rightfully ours and for the right to rebuild.
Lindemann's Pacific Palisades home is one of more than 11,000 destroyed in January's deadly Palisades and Eaton wildfires. The firestorms caused an estimated $250 billion in damages. We spoke with him shortly after flames leveled the coastal community.
It is a sliver of a difference between crying, between happiness, and sheer anger.
Recovery is proving difficult for residents. The permit process is slow. Only a handful have been issued. LA officials say more than 200 applications have been submitted. Lots need to be cleared of toxic rubble and debris. Utilities need to be reestablished.
How hard is it to imagine that it will take you almost 2 years, the earliest, for you to even start rebuilding out here?
It's daunting to think that you are going to be homeless for up to 2 years. So the best thing we've been able to do is manage to just progress one day at a time.
Lindemann is still on the road touring, hoping one day he will again call this place home.
The federal government has already approved more than $2.5 billion in fire aid. Governor Gavin Newsom is requesting an additional $40 billion. Andres Gutierrez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
More than 60,000 people in Wisconsin woke up without power Sunday morning. In Langley County, electricity has been knocked out nearly the entire county. PowerOutage.us shows over 12,000 customers are without service there. Smaller but significant outages happened in Marathon, Oneida, Florence, Vilas, Shawano, Oconto, Menominee, Portage, Waupaca, and Marinette counties. Across the state, almost 62,000 are without service. The counties were affected by an ice storm that blanketed trees and power lines. A timeline for restoration is not yet clear. The ice storm also forced numerous churches to cancel service on Sunday. Let's get a look at your first one forecast with meteorologist Blaze Keller. Blaze.
And that ice storm warning for parts of northeastern and northern Wisconsin was allowed to expire at about 7 o'clock this evening, but we're still dealing with that same system this evening, and it will eventually push on out of here as we go into your Monday. So the wintry mix, we're not expecting any ice here across central and southern Wisconsin. Turns over to snow further overnight, wrapping up as we go into the morning hours on Monday, and then we get ready for Wednesday for our next big system. Now, starting Tuesday, we find a marginal and slight risk for severe weather, but I think a lot more of the necessary ingredients for that severe weather is actually going to be off more into the plains, Nebraska, Kansas, as well as into Oklahoma and parts of Missouri. This is where they're closer to the center of low pressure. This is typically within a very healthy low pressure system, this red circle, that we usually see kind of the more concentrated severe weather. And I'll talk about why in just a moment. Also, our conditions on Tuesday into Wednesday aren't necessarily favorable for severe weather. It's more Wednesday into Thursday that southeastern Wisconsin, we could actually see that severe weather. Temperatures are going to be certainly warmer. We're going to have a little bit of moisture, and if we get some clearing, we could see some severe weather across southeastern parts of the viewing area. So that's why we have a 15% severe weather outlook Wednesday into Thursday. So Tuesday, even though we have that marginal and slight risk, I think it is a little bit misconceiving because we're going to be cold. We're going to be dealing with snow and a rain-snow mix until that warm front lifts northwards. It's maybe later into early Wednesday that we finally start to see some of that thunderstorm activity, and they'll likely be dying or at least entering into a very stable environment that we probably won't see severe weather Tuesday night into Wednesday. We'll, of course, watch it, but I think because we're going to be too cold, we see those thunderstorms very quickly die on out. It's Wednesday afternoon that, especially if we get this clearing across southeastern Wisconsin, based on how temperatures are going to be and dew points are going to be, we could see that severe weather chance return across central and southeastern parts of our coverage area. As temperatures climb back into those 60s, dew points into the 60s as well. We get a little bit of energy. It's very possible we see large hail, possibly some strong wind gusts, and maybe an isolated tornado Wednesday into Thursday. But not a lot of the Wisconsin is going to be underneath that threat. That warm front, we're going to watch to see how far north it goes. This last system, the warm front didn't get quite as far north. It stayed in northern Illinois, so we didn't have that severe weather threat. That could very well likely happen here Wednesday as well. So stay with News 3 now. We will keep you updated. But that looks to be our next big system on the horizon, beginning later Tuesday night, and I would say into early Thursday. There is a look at your forecast for Monday. It is the Brewers' home opener, so if you're going to be heading out that way before the first pitch, just going to be dealing with some flurries, possibly some breezy northerly winds, so keep that in mind as you're heading along out east. But as I said, Jalen, our big focus is probably going to be Tuesday night into particularly Wednesday afternoon. But here's some good news. We finally do dry out as we go Thursday onwards. So any rain that we've seen, any snow that we've seen and will see, it will thankfully dry on out as we head into the first weekend of April. And we'll be back into the 50s starting Friday, Saturday, maybe a little bit cooler there to end the first weekend of the new month.
Yeah, the temps that we've seen the last couple of days really weren't that bad. It's just the rain. So next weekend when we are drier, I may break the shorts back out, but we'll see.
You heard it here first, folks.
I know, first one.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Blaze. A top vaccine official at the Food and Drug Administration has resigned. Dr. Peter Marks was forced out of his job after being given the choice to resign or be fired. He referred to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy in his resignation letter, saying Kennedy, quote, wishes subservient confirmation of his misinformation and lies. Marks is the director of the agency's Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research. The department is responsible for assuring the safety and effectiveness of vaccines. Marks had a key role in carrying out Operation Warp Speed, which was the government's COVID-19 vaccine program. His resignation takes effect April 5th. Elon Musk says he sold his social media company, X, to his artificial intelligence company, xAI. The deal valued at $33 billion. While that is lower than what he paid for it in 2022, it is more than its valuation was a few months ago. Musk said the new combined company is valued at $80 billion. He didn't announce any immediate changes to X or xAI's Grok chatbot is already integrated into the social media platform. Iran's president said the Islamic Republic has rejected direct negotiations with the U.S. over its rapidly advancing nuclear program. Tehran's response to a letter from President Trump could be far from the final word on the matter. CBS News correspondent Cristian Benavides reports from Miami.
In a rebuke to a recent letter from President Trump, Iran's president has refused direct nuclear talks with the U.S. During his first term, Trump unilaterally pulled the U.S. out of Iran's 2018 nuclear deal that President Obama and other Western leaders helped put together. As President Trump wades into foreign policy around the world, there's more reaction to Vice President J.D. Vance's visit Friday to a U.S. military base in remote Greenland.
Greenland really matters for the security of the United States.
Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, criticized President Trump for not ruling out using force to secure Greenland, which is a territory of NATO ally Denmark.
Legitimate interest in stronger ties with Greenland? Absolutely. The idea that we are going to threaten a military invasion against a population that, at least everything I've read, overwhelmingly the people in Greenland don't want to become part of America.
And now a new CBS poll finds Americans evenly split on whether they approve or disapprove of the job President Trump is doing so far in his second term. A majority said they approve of his immigration policies, while most surveyed said Trump has focused too much on tariffs, but not enough on lowering prices. Cristian Benavides, CBS News, Miami.
In a televised interview, President Trump did not rule out the possibility of seeking a third term in the White House. He said there are methods for doing so and said he was not joking. The Constitution's 22nd Amendment limits the U.S. president to just 2 terms. Coming up next in sports, the Brewers are back in the Bronx looking for their first win of the season. Andrew has the highlights next on News 3 Now.
The Brewers opened their 2025 campaign with back-to-back losses and were back in the Bronx today looking to avoid their first 0-3 start in a decade. But to get that win under their belt before tomorrow's home opener, they'd have to shoot down the Yankees' torpedo offense. Top of the first, 2 away with the bases juiced, and Sal Frelick rips a single through the right side of the infield, giving Milwaukee the early lead. But those torpedoes, they were firing again today. Bottom of the third inning, New York leading 3-1, and Jazz Chisholm hits a wall-scraping 2-run homer, and it would only get uglier from there. The Crew lose it and drop to 0-3, losing 12-3. But tomorrow is a day to celebrate in Milwaukee. The Brewers play their first home game of 2025, and it will air right here on News 3 Now. Leading up to the 1:10 p.m. first pitch, Eric Franke, Zach Hanley, Blaze Keller, and myself will host that hour-long special right here on Channel 3, getting you ready for my favorite holiday of the year, opening day. The Milwaukee Bucks have lost 3 straight games and are without Damian Lillard for the foreseeable future. They hosted the Hawks tonight in a game that not only they should win, but needed to win to find their groove, and it looked good early. Pat Connaughton puts it only where Giannis could yam it, and the Freak finishes the alley-oops. Bucks would take a 7-point lead into the second quarter, but from there it was all Atlanta. The Hawks would outscore the Bucks, get this, 81-48. In the second and third quarters combined, and Milwaukee would go on to lose it in a landslide, 145-124. To the college ranks where the Final Four is set, and if you filled out your bracket by just picking the top-seeded teams to advance, you look like a genius today. Houston blew out Tennessee before Auburn stifled Sparty, meaning for the first time since 2008, all 4 #1 seeds are the last team standing. They'll face off in San Antonio next Saturday, right here on CBS. To the golf links for the final round of the Texas Children's Houston Open, where Minwoo Lee held off a furious charge from Scotty Scheffler on the 18th. The 26-year-old Australian pulled his putter from the fringe, and it paid off. He shot 20 under on the weekend and became the 5th first-time winner on the tour this season. And it's almost like, for me, like Christmas Eve. Like you're just feeling these jitters, getting ready.
Huh?
Exactly. You're ready to smell the fresh cut grass. You're ready to get out there for maybe not the warmest weather, but it's baseball, and to me, that's one of the best days of the year.
Yeah, I know your love and your affinity for the sport. What are some of your go-to snacks for a baseball game?
It's a great question. For me, if it could be anything, it would be sunflower seeds. But you don't necessarily do that at an MLB game. That's more peanuts. I think that's the direction I would go. Maybe, I know this year at the Brewers, they have food trucks available. Maybe you grab some tacos or something like that to try to mix it up. But I think opening day, you stick with the regulars. You go popcorn, peanuts, and maybe a hot dog just to finish it off.
I can dig it. Can you name any of the top players from that 2008 Final Four real quick?
Oh, gosh. Not off the top of my head. I mean, maybe.
I'm going to give you one. Your favorite, Mario Chalmers, or Rio.
That's as I call him. You're exactly right. What a team that was, those Jayhawks.
I know. They got it done that year, beating Derrick Rose in Memphis.
They did.
All right. Well, sounds good. Thank you, Andrew. We'll be back with more after the break. Those of you watching, you may have just seen that promo with opening day tomorrow. Andrew's favorite holiday, as he mentioned earlier. Blaze, for his favorite holiday, what weather should we expect?
More sunshine as the day goes on. So we're looking at 1 p.m. there. We'll be in the low 40s, maybe a little bit cooler off in Milwaukee. Possibly more partly sunny conditions, but it will be breezy out of the north, but we're going to be underneath the roof if you're going to be seeing the Brewers, so it really doesn't matter, just for the occasion getting to Milwaukee, which is going to be cooler.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Blaze, and thank you, Andrew. Thank you all for joining us. See you here tomorrow.